There was no throne. There was no crown. No guard stood at the door. Nebuchadnezzar lay in the grass, outside his own city. There was dew in his hair, and grass between his teeth. Every empire believes it rose alone. But heaven rules, and kingdoms last only while they are allowed to. 7 times had to pass before he could say his own name. But it had begun far away years before. The most feared army in the world came down from the north. Chariots, archers, rams, and engineers. They took whole days to pass one point. No small kingdom had an army for that, and Judah was small. At the head of that column rode a young man. Nebuchadnezzar had just taken his father's crown. He was a commander before he was a king, and he stayed one after. Jerusalem sat on a road he needed open, so he closed the city. The city held, paid tribute, and then rebelled. So the army came back, and the 3rd time no wall was left. They took the temple vessels, the craftsmen, and the sons of the great houses. That was how empires governed then. A people carried far away does not rise again. The road of exile took months. Then Babylon appeared at the end of the plain. Walls of baked brick wide enough for 2 chariots abreast. A gate glazed blue, covered in bulls and dragons, and above it all the ziggurat, step upon step. None of them had seen a city that size. The king sent for Ashpenaz, the master of his household. He was to pick young men from those brought in, sound in body, of good family, quick to learn. 3 years of Chaldean tongue and writing at the king's table. So the empire bent the sons of the defeated, and it needed no chain. For of them came from Judah. The scribe pressed the new names into wet clay. Daniel became Belteshazzar. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah took the names of other gods. A man's name is the first thing an empire takes. They answered to the new names all their lives, but they kept the old ones. The ration came from the king's own table. Meat, bread, and wine every day. To refuse it was to refuse the king's favor. But Daniel resolved not to eat it. So he went to the officer in charge, and he spoke quietly. The officer liked him, and the officer was afraid. The officer explained the fear in one sentence. If the 4 grew thin, it was his head. So Daniel proposed something small, 10 days of vegetables and water, then compare the faces. And the officer agreed because 10 days is little time to lose anything. After 10 days, the 4 looked better than the rest. So the officer took away their meat and wine and told no one. Then the 3 years ran out. They learned the writing, the signs, the numbers, and the dreams, and they were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar examined them himself. He asked, he listened, and he asked again. He found none like those 4, so he set them to serve in the court. He found them 10 times above the diviners of his own house. And 4 foreigners walked into the room where decisions were made. In his 2nd year, the king woke in the night. He sat up and could not sleep again. Something had passed through his head while he slept, and he knew it mattered, but he could not bring it back. So the man who ruled the world sat in the dark, unable to remember. Before dawn, the whole palace was awake. They called the magicians, the enchanters, and the Chaldeans. They came in while it was still night, omen tablets under their arms. Then the king gave the order. They were to say the dream first, and only then what it meant. They asked the king to tell them the dream. He repeated the order. They asked again, and then they said the truth. No man on earth could do that. So Nebuchadnezzar gave the sentence. Every wise man in Babylon was to be killed, and the list held 4 names he had chosen. Arioch, the captain of the guard, went house by house. Daniel met him at the door and spoke with care. He asked for time until the morning. Then he went back and called the 3. They spent the night asking for mercy, and that night the secret was shown to Daniel. In the morning he was brought before the king. He said first that no wise man there could explain it. Then he said there was a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and the secret had not come because he was wiser. Then he described what the king had seen. There was a great statue, and its brightness was terrible. The head was of pure gold. The chest and arms were silver. The belly and thighs were bronze. The legs were iron, and the feet were iron mixed with baked clay. Then a stone broke loose, cut by no hand. It struck the feet of iron and clay, and the whole statue came apart at once. Gold, silver, bronze, and iron blew off like chaff. Then the stone became a mountain that filled the earth. The head of gold was him, and a lesser kingdom would come after him. So the strongest empire on earth already had an ending. The king bowed before that young man and sent for offerings. He gave him gifts and rule over the province. Then years passed, and on a plain called Dura he raised a statue, 60 cubits high and 6 wide, gold from head to foot. No longer a thing of different metals. He had understood the dream, but not the part about the ending. They summoned the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the judges. They came from every province and stood on the plain. Then the herald cried the order. At the sound of the music, everyone there was to bow to the ground, and whoever did not bow would be thrown into a burning furnace. The music played, and the whole plain went down at once, as far as the eye could see. But 3 men stayed standing. They were in the middle of thousands, and there was no way not to see them. They shouted nothing. They only did not bend the knee. Some Chaldeans went to the king and named the 3. They were foreigners set over the province. So Nebuchadnezzar had them brought in. He offered a second chance in front of everyone, and he ended with a question. Who is the God that shall deliver you out of my hands? They answered without consulting each other. They did not need to answer that. Their God was able to deliver them from the furnace. Then came the line that changed the day. But if he does not, know that we will not serve your gods. So 3 unarmed men did the most dangerous thing there. The face of the king changed. Then he ordered the furnace heated, 7 times more than was the custom. He ordered the 3 bound in their own clothes. The strongest men of the army carried them up, and the heat killed the men who carried them. So the 3 fell inside, still bound. Then the king rose quickly. He asked how many had been thrown in. They answered 3, but he was seeing 4, and the 4 walked loose in the fire. He called them out by name. They came out with no smell of fire. That day he made a law to protect their God. but nothing inside him had changed. After that came good years. The king was at rest in his house. He had built walls, canals, and temples. He had won every war he wanted to win. Then he slept on an ordinary night, and he dreamed again. In the middle of the earth stood a tree. It grew until its top reached heaven, seen to the ends of the world. The leaves were fair and the fruit was much. The beasts of the field lay in its shade. The birds lived in its branches, and all flesh was fed from that tree. Then a watcher came down from heaven. They were to cut the tree down, cut the branches, strip the leaves, scatter the fruit. The beasts were to flee, the birds to leave the boughs. But the stump was to stay, bound with iron and bronze, and be wet with the dew of heaven for 7 times. In the morning the wise men were called again, and again they did not know. So they sent for Daniel. He heard it all and stayed silent an hour. His thoughts troubled him and his face changed. The king saw it and told him not to fear. And Daniel began by wishing that dream on the king's enemies. The tree was him. The order to cut it down was against him. He would be driven from among men to live with the beasts. He would be wet with dew until he learned that heaven rules. But the stump would stay in the ground, and so the kingdom would come back. Then Daniel gave advice no one asked for. Break off the wrongs by doing justice, and show mercy to the poor. And the warning came with a term of 12 months. The king had no one killed over that, but he changed nothing either. So the 12 months passed like good months pass. Glazed brick came out of the kilns, and new gates rose in the walls. And a river ran tamed between banks of bitumen, and he walked through it like a man inside his own work. At the end of the 12 months he went up to the roof. From there the whole city could be seen, and he said aloud what he was thinking. Is this not great Babylon, which I have built by my power, for the glory of my majesty? No one disagreed. It was all true. He had built it. The word was still in his mouth, and then a voice came from heaven. The kingdom had departed from him, and he would be taken from among men. His dwelling would be with the beasts, and 7 times would pass over him. In that same hour it was done. He came down and crossed the court without speaking. He passed the guards, and none of them stopped him. The illness had fallen on the best guarded head in the world. No one knew what to do with a king who no longer knew his own house. So they let him go, and they shut the gate behind him. The field lay past the canals where the cattle grazed. He began to sleep in the open. He ate grass like the oxen. His hair grew long like eagle's feathers, and his nails curved like the claws of birds. He was a sick man in the grass, and no one knew how to bring him back. Inside the palace, life went on. The counselors ruled in his name, and the seals were still used. The caravans came and went. The throne stayed where it was, and no one sat in it. And nowhere was it written that the king was gone. The first winter came with cold rain, and the dew wet his body every daybreak. He looked for no roof, and he asked for nothing, and he spoke to no one. So the second winter passed the same way. After that, the ones who were counting stopped counting. The hands that signed the fall of kingdoms went thick with dirt. The skin darkened from sun and wind. His name was stamped on every brick of the city. But he could no longer read his own name, and no one passing by knew who he was. He was only a man in the grass. There was an order inside the palace. No one was to say where the king was. The provinces heard that he was ill, and they left it there. So the crown was kept and the kingdom with it, because a stump bound in iron is still a living root. At the end of the days, he lifted his eyes to heaven. That was all. A man in the grass, looking up, and his understanding came back. He knew who he was, and he knew where he was. The first thing he did was bless the one who lives forever. And the rest came back with it. The majesty, the splendor, and the face people knew. His counselors and the great men brought him home and set him again on the throne. From the back of the hall Belshazzar watched him return, and he understood nothing of what he was seeing. Then Nebuchadnezzar sent for a scribe. He dictated no law and no decree of war. He dictated a letter to all peoples, nations, and tongues. It was copied into clay and carried to the provinces. He told what had happened to him, holding nothing back. And he said no one can stay the hand of heaven. He said heaven can bring down those who walk in pride. It was the last thing that empire wrote about itself. What began with no name in the grass was becoming the only sentence Babylon left standing.